Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, give this channel a subscribe, share at least some messages or comments, hit the thumbs up for the like, notification bell to be informed on all episodes when they drop. When we think about why people go to prison, we come up with a lot of reasons. Most of them are a personal choice. People choose to commit crimes. Nobody actually sticks a gun into your head, per se, and forces you to do them crimes. Most of it is based upon your own free will. But how much of that free will is being pushed by what's called self-destruction, based upon some kind of trauma, based upon poor information, bad information, negative programming from what's called external stressors? Why do people fill up these prisons, and why can't people get out of the rut that they are in? You're going to hear my own personal story of survival from the streets, from when I was very young. This shit happened, right? It's going to blow your mind, but this ain't something that's fresh news, really. If any of you have ever followed me on Facebook and have seen me on any other podcast in the last couple of years, or if you've even done time with me on my last bit in the feds, you know this story. You've heard it before. But for those of you that haven't heard it, you are going to hear it now. And this right here is going to explain to a lot of you that are new to me why my mind functions the way it does, why I see the world for what it is. It is based upon my own experience, and it is not like it's not valid, but it's based upon a darker side of the world that I have seen that maybe a lot of you have not. Or maybe you have, but you have just suppressed these things deep down inside of you for so long that you don't even know that they're there anymore. I didn't know it was there for a very long time. I had blocked it out of my mind, pushed it far back there. And when I started to get into cognitive behavioral therapy, I learned real fast where the root of most of my problems lied. I mean, I had a pretty bad childhood, though. You know, I dealt with a lot of bullies. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. But this right here was really the nail in the coffin for my own self-destruction and my bitter pursuit to destroy myself. By the time I was getting out of junior high, I was so bitter and done and rebellious with everything that you couldn't tell me anything. It didn't matter. Somebody like me would come and talk to me back then. I ain't listening to what you got to say, period. Point blank. I don't want to hear it. I didn't want to listen to anything my parents had to say, nothing. I didn't want to be under anybody's rules either. I wanted to be up under my own rules. So what did I do? I used to run away from home. Most of the time I came back. This last time I ran away from home, I didn't come back. I stayed out there in them streets. I did whatever I had to do to survive as far as stealing and manipulation. I clicked up with other kids, commonly referred to as squatter kids, big thing back in the late 80s, early 90s. And we continued to boost in certain stores, Kmart's, the shopping malls, you have it, whatnot, we did it. I boosted in this one shopping mall with these two kids, and while all the focus and tension was on them because they had been out in the streets a lot longer than me. And they looked rough, and they looked dirty, and they looked like they were trouble. Me, I was able to play the role pretty well. We're up in a store, and I'm stealing all these bottles of cologne. I managed to get into the counter where they were all at. We're talking Gucci, we're talking Obsession, Calvin Klein Obsession, we're talking Polo, Dracar, all the name brands at the time. Worth big money on the streets. Loading myself up with them. Getting them. Went up into the dressing room, stuffed them all in. I had a back brace thing on where I was stuffing them all in. Big jacket went over. There was an elderly lady in there yelling at her grandchildren when she went running into the dressing room to give them some hell. She left her purse out there on the bench, and I walked in and I grabbed her pocketbook, threw all the ringers from the cologne bottles in there, left. Found several $100s and a lot of cocaine in this wallet, surprisingly. So it was on, man. I was able to fund myself in the streets in a way I didn't anticipate at the time, but yeah, it was there. I hooked up with some dudes, some cats to help me flip it. In a couple of days, I was making bank, man. I was making probably more money than my father was. That all changed when I took the word of somebody that I was dealing with that we were going to go to this deal and everything was going to be peach keen. We were going to make about $800 right then on the rip. Boom, just that quick. Everything that I had on me at the time was in a backpack because, of course, I'm homeless. I'm a runaway. Everything was in my backpack. The stupid mistake that I made first before the night began is I let my homie borrow my strap because he was going to Knott's Berry Farm. He said he needed it for whatever reason. They were going to probably get into it with some people, probably never even used it. So I go up into this deal unarmed. My boy ain't even armed either. He's just dumb as shit. I learned real quick once we got to this place that he didn't know these people at all. What saved my life is the fact that I had to take a piss, man. I was holding it in for about a good hour. So when I went to the bathroom to go take a piss, I remembered that I left my backpack out there where these dope fiends were at, where my boy was at, but I didn't trust any of them. So I was going to go grab my backpack. I didn't want to leave it. The person that was mentoring me in the streets said, "Do never take your eyesight off of your stash, your things, because they will be gone. Somebody will get them." When I'm coming back out, I witnessed something that was described, that I can only describe as being something out of a horror movie. The first murder that I had ever witnessed. My boy getting butchered at a dining room table by these drug addicts, pulling him into the kitchen, and I just ran out of there. You know, I'm 14 years old, right? Wasn't very big. We're talking about I'm a kid trying to play in a grown man's world. Luckily for me, I got away, but I had nothing left. I left my backpack behind, everything. I had nothing at this point. My dad had lured me into a trap at the shopping mall to get me to go back home. But I told him I'm not staying there. I don't want to stay home, man. I was still bitter. Still, you couldn't tell me nothing. Despite what I had just witnessed, it didn't matter. So my dad was a hard-ass disciplinarian back in them days. It's just the way he was, man. Scots-Irish dude, real tough, dock worker, teamster. Him and my uncles were some serious union ball breakers, picket lines, all that shit. Stuff you would see out of a Jimmy Hoffa movie. My dad had participated in all of that kind of activity. He was a hard ass. My father was a hard ass. It's just the way he was. Didn't take no shit from anyone. Not even his own son. He told my Uncle Ray, pull over, let this little motherfucker out. Let him live in the streets. Let him see, you know, how much of a man he really is not. I got out. I thought I was free as a bird, right? Do whatever I want. Run whatever I want. Go wherever I want. I thought I knew everything about the streets. I didn't know nothing about the streets. You're 14 years old. You don't know shit. I went back to my boy's house thinking it was going to be all good for me to stay there. But he told me that, hey, when me and the homies were talking, my mom overheard it. She found out you're a runaway. She don't want you nowhere around here. Now I'm back to square one. I got nowhere to go at this point. Nowhere to stay. Even the squat that I was staying at with these kids who had pretty much disappeared from some other shit that went on, gone, probably dead to this very day. They're probably both dead. I'd be willing to bet 100 on it that they're dead. It's like that for them squatter kids. They die quick. People exploit them, abuse them, and then they're gone. That's what basically leads to the point of this story. I had gone back to the one house that I had met my mentor in the street. Wasn't there. Was trying to use the phone to call some people, to call my girlfriend, to call anybody, this and that, try to figure out what I was going to do. I learned real fast that I was out in the rain, and it was pouring down rain. I was in a park, didn't have nowhere to go. Earlier in this adventure, We were boosting in a Kmart, and there was a man that was in there, obviously worked there. Wasn't very much older than me. I'd say he's about maybe 19, 20 at the time. Came out and gave me his phone number and said, hey, let me help you get you off the streets, and let me help you get you off the streets. Have a good place to go, food, a bed, clothes, all that, shelter. I just thought he was some kind of Boys Town, Father Flanagan type of a recruiter. But the girl that I was with, one of the squatters, didn't like the dude and said there was something funny about him. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm tired, I don't know what to do. I'm still probably in shock from what happened to my boy, watching him being murdered, basically, murdered right in front of my eyes and barely escaping with my life. I called this man to help get me off of the streets. He came and picked me up, took me to get something to eat, and took me to a house where there were 2 other men there. If I thought this was some kind of holding hands, Jesus loves you, Christian type of shit, it was nothing at all close to that at all. They were drinking beer, they were smoking weed. I was, smoked some weed with them. With a short period of time, I realized that I had been drugged. I had tried to do the same thing that I did in that deal and run for the door, but I didn't get very far. These are grown men. One of them was a big giant dude too. I couldn't get away. I fought. I got knocked out. I woke up looking at the face of a woman who was telling them to just chop him up and dump him. He's worthless. Look what you did to his face. But the guy that had lured me there had basically talked her into let's keeping him. Somebody was shooting something into my arm. Next thing you know, I was in a closet, chained up to a post. Damn near naked in my underwear. This lasted for what seemed like an eternity, locked in a dark closet. Being abused by these people, beaten, tortured, humiliated. All the way to the point to where they finally told me what it was. They had kidnapped another boy somewhere during this time. And we were told that we had to perform in their child pornography or we were going to be killed. I told them I'm not going to do it. I'm a hardhead. Like I said, I don't listen to nobody. I was forced to watch as 2 of these men sodomized, abused, and tortured this kid right in front of me. Right in front of me. And then threw me down and said, this is going to happen to you if you don't do what we say. I don't care what any of you say, what any of you do, how bad you think you are. You're a 14-year-old child. If you have 3 grown men telling you that they're going to rape you and they're going to sodomize you, if you don't have sex with this kid on camera so they can film it and you don't do what they say, you're going to do it. It's fight or flight, and there ain't no fight, and there ain't no flight. You have to go along with this in order to survive. That's how much fear that they have instilled inside of you. For weeks this went on. Me and this boy was chained up in this room. Tortured, humiliated, drugged, you name it. Every day I lived for how I was going to get out of there. But as the days went on, the weeks went on, I realized that my chances of ever getting out of there and ever being seen alive ever again were becoming next to none at every waking moment that went by. I had believed because of what they were telling me, and I was being groomed almost like. But they realized they just couldn't control me. These movies, these videos that they were making, this child exploitation that I was forced into, that this child that was in there was forced into, he was snatched right up out of school. This woman, typical white looking lady, drove up on him, called him out by name, and said, "Hey, your father's in the hospital. I'm your mom's friend from work. Get in the car. I have to take you to the hospital." This kid is like 12 years old. I'm 14. Of course he's going to believe her. He knew his mother's name, or she knew his mother's name. She knew his name. She knew his father's name. That's the scary part about it. That's how slick these people are. That's how organized they are. The man that had got me was explaining a lot of this to me. You play ball, you are the dominant one. You're the dominant one. He's the submissive one. You will survive that way and you won't be sold. You won't be trafficked, in other words. All these videos and all of these kids that they had gotten, and they got them all over the place. Various different places. Boys, girls, you name it. They called it the menu. It was the menu, is what they called these videos. Diaper snipers and seat sniffers from all over the world watch these videos and pick you out like a piece of meat and purchase you. And you get sold off to them, and they basically exploit you and torture you, and then probably eventually just kill you, and you're never seen again. One of these dudes once laughed and said, "Before you got yourself put in this situation, I bet you never knew every time you looked at a milk carton and you saw a kid on there, that was probably a kid that we got." This is a reality. This is the sickness of the world that a lot of you just don't ever hear about or don't see. Or you don't want to see it. But you have to see it. Because it's real. When you wonder why I don't like sex offenders, when you wonder why I hate diaper snipers and tree jumping rapists and all this shit like that, and I got no sympathy for them, was because these people took my life away from me for so very long. I was lucky to get away with my life. And that was due to the fact that they were going to sell me. They lied to me the whole time. I tried to fight him, and this one dude came in to attack me, to abuse me. He was high as a kite. He came in to do these things to me, and I fought him, and I fought him, and I fought him. And this other kid that was there had managed to gather enough strength to get up and try to protect me. And this man picked him up and dropped him on his head, damn near pretty much broke his neck, pulled his pants down, brutally sodomized him right in front of me until the kid was dead. It was that kid's death that pretty much saved my life. And I got away. I got away, and my father had found me. We tried to make a police report and turn them in. Of course, what father wouldn't? The police didn't do anything. I couldn't remember where the house was. I couldn't remember the address. It was just everything. I got suckered and duped into it. I got manipulated, and I got taken advantage of by a bully, somebody who, used my weakness to their advantage. So I didn't have a whole lot of details. It was in a moment of extreme weakness that led me to this. Luckily, during all of this time, we pulled into a gas station somewhere close to wherever it was this house was. Like I said, to this day, I don't remember where the house was. My dad was pumping gas, and one of these dudes drove up into the gas station. And it triggered all of this fear, man. It was just like something out of like I said, like a serial killer, Halloween or Friday the 13th. So my dad got in the car, told him that was him. He followed him, took his license plate number down, found out where he was. Was going to take him to the cops, but he decided to call my grandfather instead. Another union ball breaker, teamster, lifelong teamster, picket line, Jimmy Hoffa type of shit. Veteran of World War II, Korea, and the first part of Vietnam. Distinguished Service Cross winner. Killed multiple people in combat. Was on the beach of Normandy, all that shit. Pork Chop Hill in Korea. You name it. Anzio. He was in a lot of these major battles. He liberated several concentration camps too. They decided that they were going to deal with this family justice style. My grandfather figured out how to get this dude. We took him to an old abandoned warehouse in Vernon, outside in Los Angeles. Tied him up to a chair. My dad brought me there. They turned the light on him, asked me if this is him, and yes, it was one of those guys, one of the worst ones. My grandfather and father began to torture this dude as if they were butchers at foster farms. Chopping pieces off of him, chopping his penis off, burning his eye out, cutting fingers off, ear, all that shit. Torturing him in front of me for hours. Until he was finally pop, 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 and killed. They disposed of him by putting him into an incinerator, got rid of him. Of course, I was in the car when all this, it was just like, I couldn't believe that I'd seen this. But my grandfather believed that if he sees this happen, that it'll cure him of whatever kind of condition that these people may have gave him. And the condition he was worrying about is, did it make me into a weirdo? Did it make me into a homosexual? Whatever it was, these are my grandfather's old school. It didn't make me into none of that, though, at all. When you are a true survivor, and I don't say victim because I ain't a victim of shit. When you are a true survivor of things like this, you despise people that do that. You don't go out and become one of them. These snowflake motherfuckers are all out there always saying that all these sex offenders, they were abused when they were kids. The statistics prove that that's bullshit. Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, many other, Charles Manson, none of them were sexually abused. Richard Ramirez, a Night Stalker, he would rape women and kill them. The Hillside Stranglers, none of them have ever been sexually abused. It's all bullshit. It's this let's make a victim culture that we live in. People want to make themselves into victims and take on the victimhood. Oh, I'm a victim, so excuse my behavior. It's bullshit. A child molester, a child abuser, a rapist, all them shits, there's no excuse for what they do. When you've been abused like that, you don't go out and look to abuse other people in that same fashion. I don't ever think about that. So you can imagine how I was manipulated, how I was fooled, how I was bullied, abused, tortured by these people for weeks. Kind of helps you see why I see the world the way I do. Not that I see the world in a negative light. I just see the part of the world included with the rest of it. I see the part most of you just want to go like this to. You don't want to see it. But you have to see it in order to confront it, to deal with it. So whenever I hear people, talking chomo this, chomo that, and throwing all these things out there like that, you can imagine that it hits a nerve in a little bit of a way, because I've been the survivor of this. For years, I've been the survivor of this. I buried it so far back to the back of my mind that I thought it would kill me one day. I played Russian roulette with my life, literally, and just doing that. I had a gun to my head, spinning the chamber, boom. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be here no more. All my relationships I ever had were destroyed. And this fire burned inside of me for decades, until I finally addressed it this last time. Went into cognitive behavioral therapy, became a cognitive behavioral therapy practitioner, studied to become a substance abuse counselor, and sought out to open people's eyes to a world that they never thought existed or didn't want to know existed. And I hate bullies. Bullies are the same thing as child molesters to me. Why? Because I experienced the two hand in hand. I don't like manipulators. I don't like phony ass people, because all these people lure you into the slaughter. And if I can help at least one of you break free from that, then I've done my job. This is a story I wanted you to hear, because this is what led me to prison. This is what led me to be in my own self-made prison for decades. I broke free from all of that because I'm a survivor. I'm a true survivor of the streets. I survived a part of the streets you don't ever hear about. The exploitation and the trafficking and the kids that disappear and the milk cartons and all of these things that are going on that a lot of you just have never heard before. You have heard it now. This is what's made Big JD on top of the world as a survivor. Because I survived some of the most heinous shit that you better pray to God that you don't ever have to endure. And you better pray to God that one of your kids don't ever have to experience this. So the next time you may be trolling me or talking shit, just remember, you're looking into the face of somebody who survived something that many of you never would. And this is real talk. My mother, before she died, had pretty much admitted to probation and everything like that this shit had actually happened. There's paperwork on it. She knew. The last living witness to this, besides myself. Everybody else is dead. I kept the secret for decades. Now I'm sharing it with you as a means to open your eyes to a bigger world than you thought ever existed. Understand that everything I say and do and the things in the direction that I go is all for a reason. I got love for each and every one of you that tune into me every day. And I'm going to continue to fight for people that are going through abuse, people that have trauma, people that have experienced a lot of these things. I will continue to fight for you. I will continue to fight your battles against bullies and manipulators and phonies and fakes all the way through until the day I die, whether I do it on YouTube or off YouTube. Just wanted to share this with you. And stay down, stay around, and I'm out.